degree in cybersecurity, you know, come full circle. And I realized that although I came in for bioinformatics, fell in love with security, with what it was about. And I still remember in one of my courses, my prof saying, okay, at the end of the semester, guys, this is now what everyone in the entire field knows about this subject. And I was stunned because, you know, 6 years of science and I never got to that point, and I don't think I still would have. And I knew that, you know, this was the place for me, and I started my research, and now I work in cybersecurity and taking a semester off to do an internship. So that was my journey to where I am today.
As I said, it's often a windy path to get where you are, which is great because we get to explore a number of different pathways and we belong. It's sort of similar, a windy path: psychology, education, and computer science.
Wow.
So you never know how you're going to get here. So thanks for sharing, Awista.
Of course. Thanks, Wendy.
Okay. Anika, Anwar.
Thank you, Professor Wendy. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Anika Anwar, and I'm a PhD candidate here in cybersecurity at the School of Computing in Queens. So actually, I did my undergrad back from my country, Bangladesh, in computer science and engineering from Bangladesh University of Engineering and Technology. Then I did my master's from the same university, and I was also an assistant professor at a private university back there. And then I applied for my PhD, and here I am doing my PhD in cybersecurity. But the research area in my masters were completely different. It was spatial query processing for location-based services. So when I applied for PhD, I applied in security. So the thing is, I actually took some courses in masters like wireless security, wireless networks, and I did some good projects in there that actually made me more interesting towards security. So when I applied to Queens, I saw some good security works, and then I applied for the PhD in this area. So it's kind of a straightforward path for me. So now I'm currently doing PhD in cybersecurity, and my current research area is security in vehicular communications.
Hey, great. So what actually attracted you to Queens? Why did you ever? So you're in Bangladesh, and just as you said this, your voice kind of froze. I'm having a little bit of transmission difficulties. I don't know whether everybody else is or not, but
okay.
So did you say you were working as a professor in Bangladesh?
Assistant professor in Bangladesh, yes. I was a faculty member at a private university.
Okay, and so what was it about Queens that made you ever apply to Queens? I always ask people this question because we're in this little, right? And how do people ever hear about Queens? What is it about Queens that draws international attention?
Actually, when I applied, I was looking for the universities in Ontario. So, and about Queens, I actually looked for the researchers of some good faculty members like Professor Mohammad Zulkarnain. His research, some of his research actually made me more interesting towards Queens, and some of his works, I read some of his papers, and then I actually emailed him about my interest to work with him, and I emailed him my resume, and that I did some work in security, in privacy, in my masters. I did some projects, and then I think he looked at my resume, and we had a long interview. But overall, the interesting part was I actually find Professor Mohammad Zulkarnain's work more interesting, and I looked for him. I looked at Queen's University, then I looked for Professor Mohammad Zulkarnain, and I looked for his research. So these were the steps, So, and finally, yeah, I decided to come here.
Great. Have you regretted it?
No, so far not at all.
You're lucky we've had such a mild winter. So this is so I don't know which year you're in. How many years have you been here?
2 years, more than 2 years. Yeah, I came here in 2018, September. And the first winter was horrible for me because the lowest temperature in my country is 15 degrees. So
Yeah.
you can imagine the first winter I was terrified, but I guess now I'm more used to it, and I love the university. I love the campus. I love going there, and I'm actually missing the campus during this pandemic. I'm actually missing my workplace. So overall, it was a great experience. Yeah.
We all are. Well, luckily we've had a mild winter so far, but that's supposed to all change tonight. So you
Yeah.
might want to hunker down for a while.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much. And did you want to share your news with us? Any news you wanted to share?
Oh, me? Yes. Actually, I am on my maternity leave, but I couldn't stay away from this amazing workshop. That's why I'm going back and forth and always coming back because it's an amazing workshop. And so, yeah, my due date is actually in 1 week. So, within 1 week, my life will be changed, and they're going to be a baby, inshallah, and a little girl. So, I'm very excited. Yeah.
And we are too. Thank you so much for participating. We
Thank you. It's
appreciate
my
it.
pleasure. Yeah.
And no, no one's being paid to be here and say all these wonderful things. As you were saying all this, I'm thinking, wow, this looks like a sales job that we set up, but this is true. We have not practiced this, nothing, okay? Thank you for sharing. We have Lama. Introduce
Hello.
yourself and tell us about your journey.
Hello, everyone. So my journey was all about computer science too. First, I'm really happy to take part in this grad career panel, and I hope this session will be fruitful and beneficial to everyone. So my name is Lama Mukahal, and I'm just starting my third year as a PhD student at Queen's University. And obviously, I'm specializing in cybersecurity, working with Professor Mohammed Zulkarnain in the CREATE program. I earned both my bachelor's and master's degree from the Lebanese American University, and I'm hearing some echo. I'm not sure if you are also hearing it. Is my voice?
I'm getting messages on my thing saying bad network connection and things like this. I don't know what exactly is going on. And Deborah was saying that somebody was frozen just a little while ago. Are other people experiencing trouble with transmission? No.
Lama, I can hear
Okay.
you good.
Okay.
And turn my microphone off because maybe the echoing is coming from me.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So where was I? I earned both my bachelor degrees and my master's degree from the Lebanese American University, as I'm originally Lebanese. My research area during my master's degree was somehow related to cybersecurity. I was studying software functional testing, which is to a certain extent can enhance security. And while I was a full-time master's student, I also worked as a software developer in the banking industry. And after earning my master's degree, I also worked for another 3.5 years in the software development field. And eventually, I decided that I want to continue my studies, and I applied for the PhD program, and here I am. You're muted.
This is why I leave my microphone on because I never remember to turn it back on. So you went from industry back to school.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a big decision to make when you're out
Exactly.
there getting on with your life, making money in the field, got a lucrative career, and you make the switch to come back to school. That's huge.
Yeah.
I might have this actually for a later question, but can you tell us a little bit about why that factored into your decision? Why did you want to come back to school?
So I wanted to come back to the school because during my master's degree, so it was really hard to do masters and study and work as a full-timer at the same time. But this really exposed me to both fields, and I was able to understand how the academic life works and how working in the industry also works. So I could compare at the same time, like which I'm enjoying more. I did work for another 3 years, but I always passionate about research. I wanted to learn more, and the ability to improve something and contribute to a certain field is really exciting. So I decided to take the decision and switch back to studying. Yeah.
That's a big life change.
Yeah, it was.
Wow, you have so much experience behind you. That's great. Okay, thank you for sharing. Next up, we have Miriam.
Hello everyone, my name is Miriam Davari. So I did my undergrad in software engineering back in my country, Iran. And during my undergrad, so I was a RoboCup team member. So I've been focusing on robotics for over 2 years. And then robots play soccer. That was really cool time. So, and then in the third year of my undergrad, I joined company. I started working and as a game developer. And then I graduated and I worked for around half an year, 1.5 year. I worked for a company as a software developer, and at that time I found that I'm kind of overwhelmed. I mean, because being software developer after a couple of years, you understand that okay, I need something more. So I applied for a master program. I applied for Queens, and especially because I work on robotics, so I had the background on machine learning, artificial intelligence. So I really prefer to experience something new, and cybersecurity was really hot topic. So I applied for different universities and focused on cybersecurity, and then I got admission from Queens with Professor Zorkirnine. So I started my master. Yeah, all of us working with him. Yes, and then yeah, I started working on software security, focus on vulnerabilities, Firefox, those kind of cool stuff. And then now I'm doing PhD as well. After that, I joined as a PhD student, and I'm also working on access control policies. That if I have a chance, I will discuss about my research in this book.
Great. Thank you. And to Queens as well.
Sorry, I didn't hear you. Can you just say it again?
Did you come from Iran directly to Queens? So again, ask you the same question. What was it that attracted you to Queens, and how did you find us?
Yeah, I mean, I checked. I mean, my priority was the topic because I prefer to work on cybersecurity, and then I found a couple of professors, and I found that a School of Computing at Queen's University is really well known and has a really good professor in this area. So I just try to find which one match best to my interests. So I picked Professor Zorgan.
That's great.
Yeah.
Well, we're happy to have you here. We're very lucky to have you here. Thanks for coming. Okay, so we'll move to Angie Dobbs now. Angie has joined us. Thank you for coming, Angie.
Hi, yes, so sorry I was a little bit late. I had the wrong invite in my calendar for the wrong time, so classic mistake.
Well, you're here now, so that's great. So if you could just tell us a little bit about your journey, we would love to hear where you're from as well, because I haven't actually introduced you at all. So
yeah, absolutely. Sure. So my name's Angie Dobbs. Currently, I'm working as the Director of Fraud and Risk at a fintech company called Wave Financial. Wave builds, we aim to be kind of a one-stop shop from a software perspective for small businesses and entrepreneurs, allowing them to run their business without having to focus on the financial complexities of running a business, the stuff no small business owner wants to do, right? They want to focus all of their time on their passion. And so as part of that, we are a payment provider, a payroll processor, and we just launched a challenger bank product. So anytime money moves, there's a cybersecurity threat, risk of fraud, risk of loss, and my team oversees and is responsible for mitigating that across all of Wave. So I'll kind of work backwards. Prior to that, I led the fraud strategy and analytics team at TD Bank. So my team actually built the predictive rules that assessed with every single debit card or credit card transaction, the likelihood or probability of that transaction being fraudulent or not. So I've got experience on the issuing bank side as well as on the merchant side. So now I protect small businesses. Before I was protecting card holders. And I kind of fell into fraud and cybersecurity by accident, I would say. I did go to graduate school. I did my undergrad at the University of Guelph in math and statistics. Did a co-op program, got a lot of experience. And I ended up taking a grad course while I was in my undergrad called computational biostatistics, which I really found interesting. Who knew we'd be in a pandemic just a short time later, right? So I found it really interesting, and I ended up going into a master's degree at the University of Guelph as well, studying the same thing. But academia wasn't for me. I was really excited to get into the workforce. However, statistics is valued lower than bio when it comes to biostatistics. And I just didn't have the experience necessary to land many interviews or job opportunities. So I had to decide, continue going to school or try to transfer what I had learned into a different industry. And I just stumbled upon a role to be a fraud analyst on LinkedIn. And LinkedIn was so new at the time. I didn't even have a LinkedIn account, and I had never really heard of it before. So I hope I'm not dating myself much, but that is such a pivotal means of career opportunities today. But yeah, I always found fraud interesting. I was a victim of fraud back when I was in undergrad, and I thought that was interesting. And I just kind of started to work my way up from there. I'm sure we have more questions we'll get into later, but if anyone has any other specific questions, I'd be happy to answer them when the time is right.
Well, it's quite a role to fall into. I just lucked upon this great job in a completely different area.
Yeah.
It's amazing how our life changes, right? Just because of something that pops up.
Yeah, and things happen for a reason. I believe that. I'm really, really happy in my career path now. I just find fraud so interesting, especially now seeing the way the world is going digitally. It's not going to go away. I always say forever employed. We'll always have a job. The worse the economy gets, the more fraud goes up and the more job security you have.
So you're quite happy right now in this pandemic.
Absolutely.
Be busy and happy. Well, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. Okay, so what we'd like to do now is sort of focus on grad school. So we've heard about all these people going to graduate school and doing master's degrees and PhDs and things like that. And my guess is that we probably have a number of undergraduates on the call. And I remember, well, I talked to lots of undergrads, and oftentimes I'm surprised to hear them ask me, like, what is graduate school? And because we're here in the academic world, we kind of take it for granted that everybody knows what graduate school is and what you do there and everything. Case that everybody does know what graduate school is. So I'm going to start with you, Lama, and ask you to explain to us exactly what is graduate school and how does graduate school differ from an undergraduate degree?
Okay. So when considering grad school, many candidates anticipate that it will be just similar to their undergraduate experience. And actually, that was exactly my thought. But in reality, there's a huge difference between graduate programs and undergraduate programs, especially in the courses. Undergraduate programs aim to provide students with a broad educational experience while focusing on one specific domain, like computer science. You don't just take computer science related courses in undergraduate programs, but you also take history, Spanish language, for example, or arts, which is entirely different areas than computer science. And even in the computer science courses, the undergraduate program does not give you any specialization. It gives you just the fundamental of this field. On the contrary, graduate programs are very, very specific. You'll be focusing on one area of expertise, like for us, cybersecurity, for example. So your classes will be much more specialized. You will be learning the ins and outs of this area, and they will also be more advanced, the courses. As a student, you will be also required to be more dependent on yourself. And also, one major change in the graduate programs is the thesis requirement, which introduces you to the research field. You'll be expected to collect and analyze existing information to contribute to a certain field. I also find that the graduate program is completely different from the social aspect as well. In grad school, you probably, in undergraduate school, you'll be probably living with other students on campus and participating in different events and campus-wide activities. But generally, in graduate school, your social circle is much smaller, but at the same time, you get a chance to meet people with different experience and you build a professional relationship with them, which is vitally important for your career. Most importantly, also, you get closer to your professor, your supervisor, and learn from him or her experience and expertise in the field you are working on. That's what comes to my mind. Yeah.
Okay, so we've heard that people go to graduate school at different points in their lives. So some people go to graduate school right after undergrad, so you continue your undergraduate studies. And some people come back to school quite later in life. In fact, some people will come back after they have families, or much later when they decide that maybe they've had enough of the working world for a while and they decide to go back to school and do something completely different. So of you have switched schools between your undergrad and your graduate degrees. In your opinion, is that a good idea to switch schools, or should you just stay at one place and do your graduate studies right at the same university that you were at before? What's your opinion? I know this is a question we didn't actually talk about, but it just popped into my mind.
While switching school is not always a bad idea if you feel that switching will give you a better exposure, but in my opinion, it's important to also monitor that you can continue your studies in whatever school you are switching to. It's not just you have to repeat things all over again. I guess Miriam can also say something about this. I guess she switched schools, right?
Yeah, so I think it depends. So it depends. If you switch a school from country to country, that's really interesting. But can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So, and I think that it depends on priority. For example, some people prefer to go to the high ranking university. I mean, the better quality university that it's really enhance your future job. If you can go to the higher ranking, you will get more chance of better job in future. But if you really not kind of person that you try to, because it's a different, especially for a master or PhD, because you need to deal or work with a specific professor. So, and if you don't know him that much, it's kind of risky. But yeah, I think it's more related to the personality. For example, for me, I really love to experience new thing and new area and even deal with different people. Because of that, I think it was the best decision that I made.
Oh, that's great.
I can add in from like a within Canada perspective.
Yep.
So I did my undergrad at McMaster University, actually. I'm originally from the GTA, so it was kind of like close to home. They have a great science program, and it's a pretty, big university with a lot of accolades. And by circumstance, I ended up doing my master's degree at Queen's. I joke around that I stumbled onto Queen's, but honestly, I can say that it's probably the best thing that's ever happened to me. And this is for many reasons. So there's merits to both, right? So McMaster is kind of what you can consider a larger university. There's a lot of students, and some people kind of equate that with more opportunities. But what I've found is the opposite. So being at Queen's, and being not one of the GTA, universities, people either, hesitate to go here because it's further away or whatever it may be. I feel that it opens you up to a world of opportunities. I have never had the opportunity before to just walk by one of my professor's class or like offices, knock on the door and like have a conversation. And I'm able to know them one-on-one, which was never possible in like a class of 1,000 at McMaster. There's a much better relationship building that happens. You meet more people and there's a lot more opportunities that necessarily are more accessible that may not be when you're in a community with a lot of people. You don't get drowned out and you're able to kind of form a community based on, what you like and have personable connections. And so I found that within your career, that helps you actually go a lot further by having a smaller community. Like within it took me about 6 months to find a job after I finished my master's degree, and my GPA was stellar, and I had connections, and I did co-op. But going into Queens, I had an internship the first semester before I even started, my master's program, and I was able to make so many positive connections and you end up knowing people that know people and that end up knowing people. I've held like 3 part-time jobs, all in software and computer science and cybersecurity. I've participated in a lot of hackathons. And so I think that changing universities and getting a fresh perspective and coming to a place where you may not originally kind of think might be the best can be a very positive experience for you.
You originally think might not have been the best. It sounds like you had some reservations about coming to Kingston.
Yeah, a little bit. I was thrown into it because I'm married and my husband goes to medical school here, so I basically didn't have a lot of options. And so I just sat down and I said, all right, you got to make the best of it, and it became something amazing.
So you were a hidden gem here. A hidden little secret. So just since you touched on the internship, I'm sort of jumping ahead here, but since you've done an internship, can you talk a little bit about the internships that you've had as a graduate student? Because in fact, that's something that's a bit unique to this program, to the cybersecurity program, which is real work experience during your graduate degree. That's not something that you typically get. Can you tell us a little bit about how you found the jobs and what might be different between an internship as a graduate student and as an undergraduate student? Like, is there a difference, or are you still getting the same kind of experience?
Yeah, so what I found working as a graduate student, it's something very strange, and I've experienced. It's like having a graduate degree sometimes unlocks doors, just because it's kind of like having something that speaks for you. So it's like a certificate. When people see that master's, they assume that you're somebody who has a certain accolades, certain experience, and something you can bring to the table. I personally don't agree with either or, because I feel like everyone has something unique to contribute based on experiences and everything. But it's based on what I had as an undergraduate student versus a master's. Like, people are more willing to give you responsibility. I'm working right now at Deloitte as a cyber risk specialist. And to me, it's sometimes astounding that with just a year of experience, I'm able to be in a position where I'm providing multi-million-dollar companies, advice on how to best do their cybersecurity. And that was something that I never thought was possible. And it's kind of like what Angie said, where you just stumble into it and you don't really, know what's happening at that time. But at the end, you look back and you're like, how did I get here? I think being in an internship as a graduate student gives you a different perspective of the workplace as well. You're able to kind of bring more to the table. And when you're somebody who's in a master's degree, the connotation is that you're somebody who's hardworking and you want more. You like to be in the middle of it, and so people are going to be more willing to offer you the responsibility and offer you opportunities that you may want to be taking advantage of while you're in the workforce. And those are just some. I've been on this internship for only about a month, so that's my 1 month of experience in what it means to be as an intern.
So just a personal question. So you're getting paid for your internship, mm-hmm. I assume. So yes. You are making money, and you're in the internship for how long?
So my internship is for 4 months.
4 months. Okay. So a short internship.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks for sharing that. So one other thing that didn't come up earlier, students actually get paid. So it's not a terribly lucrative position to be in as a graduate student, but you do get paid by the university for doing your research. So that's a bit of a bonus of graduate school as well. Okay, so I'm going to, I guess I'd like to hear a little bit about research and sort of what research entails and that sort of thing. So maybe I'll call on Anika just out of the blue here. I know we're deviating from our script over here. I hope you don't mind, but I want to make sure everybody gets a chance to talk. So maybe you could just give a little blurb on sort of what does it mean to do research, and maybe a little bit about what your research area is, what you do.
Okay, so about research, I would say that It's looking for some specific topics, like what is your interest in. For example, in security, there are lots of different areas. There is software security, security in clouds, security in IoT. So you have initially, I think you won't know what is your research interest is until you do the research. That means you actually look for those topics individually. You look for the problems and the solutions that previous researchers did, and if you find interesting, you go more deeper. For example, initially you might find something general, but if you think that thing is interesting, you have to dig deeper. For example, currently my research area is vehicles, connected vehicles. So secure and initially I read about security in softwares, security in clouds, and security in IoTs. What were the problems in these fields, in these research areas? And I found one interesting problems in vehicles. Then I dig deeper into the vehicles, like what are the interesting part of vehicle where there is a potential security threats. So there, even in vehicle, there is a part of hardware, there is a part of software, there is a part of architecture, there is a part of communications. So I dig deeper and I look for the problems or security threats in those different areas. And then I found it's more interesting that vehicles are communicating using wireless networks, and I had my experience in masters. I took a course in wireless networks, so I found some similarities, I found some common topics, I found some common notions, common threads. So I could understand what the problem was. So I dig deeper into the vehicular communications. So currently, right now, my research area is security in vehicular communications. And so I think in general, research means you have to find a topic, I think, a vast area, and you have to eliminate that by step by step. You have to make a small part, and you have to dig deeper as you find the part more interesting. So initially, if you find a small part, I mean, if you go for the specific initially, so you might find that it's not making you interesting, and you might find research not interesting. So I would suggest find a broad area first, look for different topics and go for the one that makes you more interesting, then dig deeper into that area, then again find more interesting parts, and again dig deeper until you find the small part that makes you more interesting. So for me, I would say that was the research for me.
Great, thank you. So for undergraduate students, one way to get into research, we do have actually a number of undergraduate students that work on research. Do you guys in your lab have any undergraduate students that are working on projects at the moment with Dr. Zulkarnain?
Not right now, no.
Not right now, but you have, yeah, but you have had undergraduate students. Undergraduate students often have opportunities in the summer through some research grants. Ways to get involved with different professors. If you see a professor that is doing work that's interesting to you, then go and talk to them and ask if they have any opportunities in their labs. Some offer summer work. We have for everybody who's been coming to this program or who's going to take part in the case competition tomorrow, we have an internship opportunity for people to apply for. So there's lots of ways to get in there to see if you like the research environment as an undergraduate student before you jump into graduate school. So lots of opportunities there if you look for them. Okay, Angie, so I wanted to bring you back in. So you're our one person who's not currently a graduate student, but I know that you do have a graduate degree. And I kind of wanted you to talk about whether or not you thought that had been a useful endeavor, or was, does it help you in any way in your job, or do you just wish you had skipped that part of your life? And it's totally fine to be honest. Like we're all about, let's hear different perspectives here. We're not here to sell graduate school. It sounds like we're trying to sell graduate school, but we're not. We're here to have a discussion about different options.
Yeah, I'd be happy to share my experience there. So, I will say I'm glad I did my master's. I'm glad I didn't do a PhD in statistics, but it depends on your personality, your goals, and the subject matter that you're in. So in statistics, my master's was 1 year. My thesis was like under 100 pages. Because it's really, you do it's a lot of data and analysis and model running, and then all of that work just gets put into a really simple chart that doesn't take up much space on the page, right? So it was a very quick master's, but I'm really glad that I did it because one, I can't remember who said it earlier on. I think it was Lama on. You get to focus on one topic and like really learn it in detail, and also the practice of taking something, learning it really in depth, thinking about it strategically and the so what, like what am I trying to show from here, and then the experience writing your thesis and telling that compelling story with the data or the analysis behind it, definitely applies into your career. Things like building business cases, things like learning, like written communication. I have to present to executives all the time now, so understanding how to convey complex information in a way that varying individuals may be able to comprehend. And, frankly, having a master's on my resume set me apart from a lot of the other students. So I believe it got me top of the list for a lot of the jobs that I applied for that weren't in the biostatistics field that I was underqualified for, as mentioned earlier. But I think it resulted in higher salary and better job opportunities because I had that. The reason I'm glad I didn't do a PhD, because in the line of work I went into, that may have made me look overqualified. And often in fintech, they want it's faster, less research, and so it may hurt me in that sense. But it depends. It depends on the area you want to go into, the companies you want to work for. But that was what's best for me. And sorry, I think someone needs to. There's some background noise. I don't know if other people can hear that. So if you're not on mute, yeah, thank you. Yep. I hope that answered the question.
Yeah, thanks. We're still hearing the background noise. I'm not sure who that is. Okay, thank you so much. That's very strange. Everybody looks like they're muted, but I was still hearing things. My internet connection is so bad today. I don't know why. Okay, so I do want to have time for Q&A at the end, so I'm going to jump kind of to our last. Actually, no. I wanted to still ask you another question, Angie. If you can come back.
Of course.
I think Deborah's been spotlighting people. I don't know if everybody's seeing the same thing or not, but people sort of keep jumping back and forth. I admit I don't know a lot about your background, but you have a team working for you, do you?
Yes.
Since you're the director, I assume you have a team. So I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about the different tasks that people do. So it's kind of the different roles and different careers that they would have at Wave in the fraud area, sort of different ideas of things that people might be doing. And also sort of what are the qualities that you would be looking for? I don't know if you do the hiring, but what kinds of qualities are you looking for in people when you're doing hiring?
Yeah, so I have a team of about 25 people, and it's kind of broken into the investigative part of my team and the data and analytics part of my team. So on the investigative side, the team is broken into by line of business. So I've got payments risk analysts, payroll risk analysts, money risk analysts, and they're actually reviewing the high risk events for suspected fraud, credit, and compliance risk. So they're the ones actually reviewing what the automated systems spit out and say, this is high risk, go investigate, work with the business owners, make sure they are who they say they are and that they're not doing anything prohibited on the platform. With that team, we hire for individuals with keen attention to detail, really, you've got to have a different sense about, it's not like most customer facing roles. You have to be skeptical. You have to be able to like, we always say we're jaded, right? Because even anytime someone's really nice to you, you're like, that's suspicious. No one's that nice.
I'd be so good at this.
It's very anti my nature. I'm like too nice all the time. I have to remind myself not to be socially manipulated by the fraudsters out there. But that's really, it's the attention to detail, the ability to think big picture and really tie behaviors together. And think critically when reviewing cases or working with customers. On the, we call it strategy and analytics, is the more technical side of my team. And that's where it's made up of data analysts. We've had some engineers in the past, people with a product management or project management focus. And what this team is doing is really, they're building the reporting and analytics to drive insights into where our loss is occurring. Like, where are we losing money? Where are there gaps in our products and processes? Where are we being attacked? And we're also doing things like, we build all of our own risk systems in-house. So we build the admin tools that the team works out of. We are building our own rules engine and decisioning engine, where we just launched a machine learning model for fraud prediction in partnership with the ML team at Wave. And so that team is really partnering with the different groups in the organization that productionalize a lot of the tools that we use for fraud and threat detection. And so we're actually the only team in the company that has our own dedicated data support. Marketing, other product lines, they actually have, we have a data team, and each person on the data team has a focus to support the other areas of the business. But because fraud and cybersecurity is such a threat and it requires really good subject matter experts to weigh in, it is some art and science. You can't just have ML models and you can't just have simplistic models. You really do need both, and they need to be fueled by what your investigators are telling you. And so for that reason, we intentionally have a data and analytics team on that reports up through me and not up through the data team, to keep those really close together. And then outside of my team at Wave, for other roles, we've got our info security officer, and focuses on the engineering teams that actually make sure we're monitoring the software and ecosystem itself. So my team is managing the financial services products, but we're not responsible for site security. Things like MFA, protection of logins, that kind of stuff is actually done by a different team. But there's other roles and paths to go into there. Sorry, on the strategy and analytics side, you don't have to be an expert in risk, but it definitely helps. So if you're a technical person, which it sounds like most of this audience is, you know data. Doesn't even matter what language. Most tech companies these days will let you choose your own adventure. It's really like, do you think critically? Do you know your way around data? Can you drive insights from there and tell a compelling story from what you've analyzed?
So you're not necessarily looking for certificates and things like that in cybersecurity, like you're looking at the person's background and personality traits and things like that.
Yeah, and their behavior through the system. So for example, a normal user creates a Wave account, they click around, they see what's there. A fraudster has got some script that creates 20 accounts at once, goes right to payments, processes stolen credit cards, and tries to move the money. So that path is very different. So it's looking for out of pattern behavior with the data that we have available to us.
So do you have any cool stories to share with us about cases that you've investigated or uncovered, or? Oh,
got many, so many.
Tell us one good one.
Sure. So we found, actually it was this, we get attacked by a lot of fraud rings. We were significantly understaffed earlier this year. When the pandemic hit, we saw a complete change in risk landscape to pre-pandemic. Fraudsters take advantage of poor economic times. So we saw a big increase in scams, fraudsters trying to convince customers to accept large payments for orders of personal protective equipment they claimed they had. So they were literally targeting places like hospitals and schools that needed PPE, convincing them that they sourced a huge order of this stuff from overseas, just pay me and I'll ship it to you. And it's a non-delivery scam. They would ship an empty box or not ship anything at all. And so we like really were in the data trying to find these as quickly as possible. Anything that our systems weren't equipped to detect yet, because this was so different from the types of risk we were seeing before. And one morning before 9 a.m., I caught $280,000 in attempted fraud across, I think it was 80 different accounts, because they tend to go small dollars on many accounts so that they bypass your risk mitigation systems. So 80 some accounts, $280,000 before 9 a.m. And then we had to go shut all of them down. We didn't even have enough manpower to tell all of these fraudsters we had declined their accounts. But thankfully, we detected the majority of it. So that was an interesting one.
That sounds like so much fun.
It is. I take it really
personally. It's satisfying when you do that, right? I haven't even had my coffee yet, and you're like catching these people doing this stuff.
They started taunting me at one point that I caught a few accounts the fraudsters created that said stopangie@gmail.com. Like they were creating all these emails and business names with my name in it. And I was like, nope, shut it down.
Okay, so that brings up another question. Are you ever sort of concerned about your safety working in this area? Or concerned about you being defrauded because they know you're working in this area? I guess I've never thought about that.
So I'm not worried about... It's a good question. So typically, Wave, for example, puts the name of all of our employees on the website. Typically, we haven't listed the risk team's names if they don't feel comfortable. I'm actually not worried about true fraudsters because they're cowards. They hide behind their computer screen. And why go after me? I'm a difficult target. They're going to go after the weakest animal in the pack. I'm more concerned about the legitimate business owners who are unreasonable and don't agree with the funds that I'm holding. Those are the ones that tend to come after me, but not so much cybersecurity. And I've been a victim of fraud twice. It's a minor inconvenience. It's really not the end of the world, so I'm not too worried about it.
Oh, thanks for sharing all that.
Yeah.
Okay, so I would like to open up the floor for questions. And we're a pretty small group, so I think if you have questions, if you just put up your hand, then we'll call on you and you can just unmute and ask your questions. I see there's some things going on in the chat. Sorry, my eyes aren't really good enough to follow everything that's going on in the chat, but I think it's personal conversation as opposed to questions. And maybe, Deborah, you could help if there were questions in the chat that should be asked. Perhaps you could help me out, but I think it's been mostly just conversation. So Ash.
Yeah, hi.
Hi. Go ahead.
Hey. I have a question for Angie, actually. I'm a bit older, 30, not super old, but 36 in a career transition. And I'm finding what's happening is being a woman in a non-traditional field and not being confident in my skills or abilities yet, as I'm just starting it, there's this thing called imposter syndrome. And, I've definitely done some computer stuff, but I don't feel confident in applying for any of this. And though I find your story was dynamite, but my confidence level is not there. So what can women do? And I find there's a lot of help for younger women, but not for older women in that career transition. Can you talk on this a little bit?
Yes, imposter syndrome, my old friend.
Every
imposter syndrome is so okay and so expected. I have been talking about this for a very long time. Actually, I face imposter syndrome almost every single day in my job. I've spoken to many women around me who say the same thing. And actually, my boss, who is the Chief Financial Services Officer of not just Wave, but H&R Block, a multi-billion-dollar company, talked to me about his imposter syndrome last week. So this is not something that ever goes away. It's really the more you become aware about it and talk about it with others, the more it becomes normalized and you start to gain that confidence piece by piece. So kudos to you for raising that and acknowledging it, because that's really the first step. How to move through that. I would say if you're making a career change, almost every single person I've hired on my team recently has reached out to me on LinkedIn to ask to have a conversation. And, you know, I obviously I haven't had conversations with every single person who reaches out, but depending on how you approach that conversation, and I'd be happy to chat with you offline if you'd like, about to just make that and have kind of like an informational interview with the person. Hey, you've got a cool career, a good job, an interesting path. Here's where I'm at, and kind of seek some one-on-one feedback from people who may be willing to do that. It's a scary thing to do, and you're probably going to get some no's, but know that the no's are likely just capacity driven and not that people don't want to help. But you got to put yourself out there to start having those conversations. Yeah, I hope that answers your question, but imposter syndrome is real. I deal with it all the time, and really just try to seek feedback from others, ask for resume critiques. And when it comes to data science, there's a bunch of free courses online as well that you can take if you haven't looked into those already.
Yeah, and I actually did send you an invite to LinkedIn, so you'll see an Ashley Burke there.
Perfect.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
No problem.
Great. Thanks for sharing, Ash. And certainly for bringing up that imposter syndrome. I don't know if you were at our other workshops. Were you the one that asked about that before? I said we would touch on it in this. Sorry?
No, it wasn't me, unfortunately.
It wasn't you. So in one of our other workshops, somebody asked about that, and I said we're going to touch on that on the panel. And in fact, that was a big topic that we had for the panel. And since we were running low on time, I thought we'd just skip it. So I'm really happy that you brought that up. And I think there were some other people that wanted to speak about their imposter syndrome. I'm another huge imposter. I mean, imposter syndrome is just a horrible thing to deal with, and you have to just recognize that it's there and accept that it's going to be there for you and make the best of it and power on through, because you're definitely worth it. And we need you in the field. We need everybody in the field. So good for you for thinking about a career move. Awista, I think you wanted to talk about your imposter syndrome, did you?
I mean, yeah, like Angie hit the nail on the head with how no matter how high up you go and what you're doing, it kind of never goes away. I face it. My husband is now a fourth-year medical student. He treats patients every day, and he comes home and he says, I don't know if I'm supposed to be here. I don't know what I'm doing. And it's absurd to me when he says it, but it's just as absurd to him when I say it, because we see each other, you know, how we're what we're achieving in the field and what we're doing. And speaking to job applications, like I think that no matter where you get in your career, looking at that HR spit out of what we want in the perfect ideal candidate is always, always, always intimidating. What I've found and what I've been told time and time again from speaking to people is that's just what HR has described as what the best possible candidate, if they existed, what that would look like. And if you apply anyway, and you touch on some of the top qualities that they've listed, like the top 3 or 4, it kind of shows your initiative to be wanting to not only meet those needs, but be wanting to learn more on the job. A lot of cybersecurity is learning on the job and going from there. So I think like, you know, being brave enough to apply anyway. And there's an interesting statistic where it says that I think it's, now I'm paraphrasing, but it's something like 80% of men apply for jobs that they're underqualified for, but women just won't, because, you know, we're more conservative in what we think we are able to accomplish. And that's why there's like a 10% representation only. And I'm sure Angie knows way more about this, about women in the field. And, you know, there's such a big mismatch as a result. So even if you feel underqualified, I always think to myself, what's the worst that can happen? And the worst that can happen is you hear a no or you hear nothing at all, and then you just move on and do the next thing, you know? Keep going until you hear no.
That's for sure. Yeah. Take those opportunities and try for it, because you're right. What's the worst that can happen? So you don't get the job. Lots of people don't get the jobs. So you move on and try something else. Yeah. Question everything you think about yourself. and actually, when you were saying about your husband and you sort of looking at each other, and that's one of the key things, is to sort of look at your self-doubts and say, like, is this realistic? Like, look at all the things that I've done or all the things that I'm capable of doing. I should be here. I belong here, and do it.
Sorry, I just wanted to say, I think that it's really important, all the points that you brought up. I used to be in the career field, and it's funny that you can easily help other people, but when it comes to helping yourself, that's where it becomes the hardest. So thank you. I really appreciate that.
You've probably given all this advice to other people then.
Oh,
Yeah.
a lot of it, yeah. But it's hard to practice it yourself. So it's really important to hear that. So thank you.
It certainly is. So good luck. Okay, so one question that Deborah asked over here on my other screen, I'm watching 3 different places here. I'm not good at multitasking, is about whether or not it's best to go out after your undergraduate degree and get some experience before you go to graduate school, or should you just dive right in? And I know we have people from different backgrounds, so you're going to have differing opinions on this, I suppose, but we'd like to hear sort of your opinions on that. Anybody have suggestions for what's best? I mean, it really depends on your circumstances, I suppose. I mean, some people aren't ready to go out in the workforce. So I do actually see some students where it's sort of just, I feel, well, the imposter syndrome hits. I'm not ready to go get a job because I don't feel like I know enough. I'm not there yet. And they choose to do graduate school because, you know, they're just not really ready to get out in the real world yet. And others just don't want to delay it. They think maybe they won't come back to school if they take some time off to go and work, and you're out there making lots of money. Are you going to go back to school? Are you going to actually take that opportunity and go back to school? So maybe they'd never come back. But I always find it interesting when people have been out for a long time and then they give up that job and come back to graduate school. It seems like a brave move to me. But I've known lots of people who've done that. Okay. Anybody else have questions? So again, I see things happening in the chat and I can't see them without going like this, and I look really ugly when I look in the camera like that. So I don't want to make myself look ugly, you know. So this has been absolutely wonderful.
I think someone else has their hand raised. I just can't see who it is.
I think it's Ash has her hand up, actually.
I see Ash in my panel, but then within the other people, I see...
Sana. Sana, do you have a question? Thank you for that.
Hello.
Yep.
You hear?
We can hear you, yes.
Thank you so much. I thank you, Like a Woman, for this wonderful workshop. Especially like a woman in science, it's important to have like this subject nowadays. My question is, how can we protect our system from frauds and this serious issues? Because we have many problems in science and computer. Our targets to like phones and PCs. Unfortunately, it's serious issues to have like these problems in our system in Canada. Because I was a victim because of these frauds and for these situations. Thank you so much and have a good day.
Thank you, Sana. So we have one more. So I think I might have missed the question. Was the question how we're supposed to protect ourselves from fraud? I think there was a question.
Yes, exactly.
I was hearing all the nice thank you for doing this, and then I kind of missed the question. Anybody want to respond to that?
So the question is, how do we protect ourselves from fraud?
Yeah, how do we protect ourselves with all of our devices that we have now online and everything? How do we go about protecting ourselves? That's a long answer.
Yeah, I mean, the first thing I would suggest is definitely password security is the first thing. You'd be surprised how many people still use the same password for everything, and that they don't even have to be phished or hacked. Fraudsters guess it all the time. So use a password manager where we use 1Password. Number 1Password is the site, and you only have to remember one, and you can store all of your other passwords in there. It's an app, it's a Chrome extension. It makes it really, really easy to manage your passwords. And then any key sites that allow MFA, I recommend doing so. So multi-factor authentication, there's different authenticator apps you can use, but definitely any apps that you use for banking Email is a huge target for account takeover fraud. Most account takeovers start from your email, so protect your inbox. If you use Google, they've got a really great security. If you're using like a Yahoo or anything, get off that, create a Gmail account. That would be and choosing apps and companies to use that have strong security.
So password managers, so I've always been skeptical of those. Like, why would I give somebody all my passwords? Yeah, I'm a skeptic. So, so those types of services are okay to use, are they?
Yes, we're mandated to use it at Wave, and our info security team and all of the people who are much smarter than me at cybersecurity say it passes the test. Nothing's perfect, right? If you get phished or there's malware on your computer and they gain access to the one password and they have access to everything, nothing is perfect. But monitoring your devices, setting up alerts as much as is possible and necessary it's the best way to go. It just because like behavior, you can't possibly remember all of those different passwords. So you either use the same password, which isn't secure, or you use the same number of passwords for a variety of things, or you trust a password manager, which if you're regularly changing that password is more secure than anything else.
I have a scheme that I use depending on the website, which works really well until they change the rules on me. And then I can't use my scheme because it doesn't fit their rules. And when I find one of those, when I come across one of those websites, I know I'm never ever going to visit this website again because I'm not going to know the password. Or I just use this change your password every time I go on the website. So I have a lot of new passwords. Okay. So I think we'll take one more question. I know that we're running over time here. If anybody has to go, feel free to drop off, including my speakers. That's if you have to leave, that's great. Not great. No, it's not great. I'm so bad at this.
You're doing great.
You know, the one thing that I find when I'm on these things, on these video chats and stuff, it's so hard to keep your mind like focus on what you're doing exactly. Like my mind just, I don't know, it goes here, there, and everywhere, and I say all kinds of weird things. So I'm going to ask Amy for her question, and I think this is the last question that we'll take. So Amy.
Hi, can you hear me right now?
We can, yeah.
Okay, so my question is, would it be better to gain work experience after completing your undergraduate degree and then possibly doing a master's degree after working? Or would it be better to do a master's degree after the undergraduate and then begin working?
Oh, we should just tackle it.
Yeah, I don't really know who to.
Okay, no, I'm talking. Okay, cool. Yeah, I can answer that. I can start it off, and then if anybody else wants to add. So I think the first thing that I want to address is there seems to be this fallacy that we should have our lives figured out by 22, and it's not true. It is actually just garbage. You don't need to have everything in your life figured out at every stage. It's okay if you don't know if you want to do a master's or don't want to do a master's. It's okay if you don't know if you like the field or don't like the field. I think that the best advice that I can give would be that once you complete your undergraduate degree, I think it's good to kind of take a step back and to evaluate, okay, so did I like what I do? Can I, for 2 years, lead independent research work or 1 year into this field, enjoy what I do, and be okay from a mental health perspective as I do? And finally, or do I want to just go and see what's out there in the field before I decide to further, transgress into the field? And I think like that's different for everyone. If I didn't do a 1.5 year work experience in chemistry, I wouldn't realize that, okay, love learning it, hate doing it, need something else in my life, and, have a 180 career change. And I think it's okay, to be at any stage and decide that based on what you think you're best at. I have a lot of friends that went right into, master's degree in science, but I think that especially from a mental health perspective, I needed a break from school and like being in the same cycle over and over again. And I wanted to have a little bit of a change in my routine and what I do. And I think that ended up being a really positive experience for me. And there's other panelists here that did the opposite, and I'm sure they can speak to how and why it worked for them.
Anybody have anything to add?
I totally agree with Arista. I guess she explained it really very well. It highly depends from one person to the other. What do they want to do? And it's really not a bad idea to start something and just drop it and switch back to school, for example. So it really depends on what someone wants.
Okay, so I think we'll call it a day here. So I would like to thank all of the panelists for sharing your insights and your journeys and your knowledge and spending this time with us. It was really very enlightening. Thank you. And thank you for the participants, thank you to the participants for coming to listen. So this session has been recorded. I did start the recording just a little bit late, so I think we come in with Awista talking about something or other in the middle, so it's going to start off a little bit oddly, but that's the way it goes here. So we'll post this on our website as well, unless anybody has any objections. Actually, we never asked about whether or not this was okay. So if you have any objections to us posting this, please let me know. No, everybody's good with that. You guys are becoming like YouTube stars now, so it's all good. So thank you so much for joining us. And so for anybody on the call who's participating in the competition tomorrow is the case competition. Can't wait. It's going to be very fun. Lots of people participating, so it's going to be a good day. So thanks everybody for coming, and have a wonderful evening and weekend ahead. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye, Wendy. Thanks.
Everyone. Bye.